know the why human trafficking work is needed: to fight for the freedom of modern-day slaves. But love, passion, commitment isn't all you need to be an effective and successful anti-trafficking advocate. Learn the how. I'm Dr. Celia Williamson, Director of the Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute at the University of Toledo. Welcome to the Emancipation Nation podcast, where I'll provide you with the latest and best methods, policy, and practice discussed by experienced experts in the field so that you can cut through the noise, save time, and be about the work of saving lives. Welcome to the nation. Today we have Marie DeLeon, and she has workshops called Healing Journey Workshops. And these workshops are for survivors. She is a survivor herself of commercial sexual exploitation. She started this work probably around 2010. She is also a member of New Yorkers for the Equality Model, which she'll talk about. And she is currently the coordinator for the Empowerment Center, or the Empower Center. Which one is it, Marie?
It's the Empower Center.
The Empower Center. And so she's the program coordinator there. And she is just awesome and doing wonderful work. And so we wanted to bring her on so that she can help us understand a lot about healing. And so I want to start with the Healing Journey workshops. So Marie, how long have you been doing those, and what are those about? What are they comprised of?
Sure. So I started Healing Journey in 2018. And the whole goal was to provide a space for survivors to be able to explore their own healing journey. In my own healing journey, I often would kind of explore all of the typical things that, allies and service providers would suggest, around, something physical like yoga or, things like that. But in my own journey, I really wanted to think about what worked for me, what would kind of address my triggers, and what would help me build strength in not only identifying them, but applying them in the moment. So that's why I started Healing Journey. And it's just a series of 4 to 6 workshops, depending on the season. And in the workshops, we do explore, things like yoga, but we also explore using essential oils and using, a lot of sensory objects, whether it's like fidget items or something, soft and hard, just exploring all of the different senses when addressing our triggers.
And so when you say triggers, what are some of the common triggers that survivors might have?
So common triggers might be, being in crowded spaces, or seeing certain things that are familiar to them that remind them of being in the life. Maybe, in the moment you might be, whether you're in court or at work, and you hear things or see things that it brings you back to being in the life, and it can be really, difficult to push through.
Mm-hmm. And so at the workshops, you help some of the survivors with the triggers when they have a trigger, what they can do to handle it or to get through it or past it. What kinds of things do you do?
It's really an open space for everyone to just explore their own healing journey. And I, open the floor to let everyone, discuss what works for them. And a lot of times we're kind of just in conversation with one another to kind of share what works for us, and things that feel good, things that don't feel good. It's a space for sharing, what works and what doesn't work.
I love that idea of letting people work at their own pace and to be heard. So describe this workshop. What happens when a person comes into the workshop, and what takes place, and how long are these workshops? Sort of describe it, paint a picture for us.
Sure. So, we have a workshop where they come in and they can grab some essential oils or some fidget items to just kind of start exploring some of their sensory needs, so that they can come into the space and feel like they have some tools to start with. And there's one workshop where we'll start with a little bit of yoga and then we go into our discussion. Or we might have some discussion and then we might do some journaling. And the final workshop usually is uh, sort of a trip, or like we might do something outside and kind of do like a picnic, or we'll visit a cultural center and just explore different ways to do healing outside of a workshop. And that can be really helpful because sometimes self-care looks different for everyone, and sometimes it might be just kind of taking a trip to the museum and looking at something that is visually appealing, and exploring what's happening in the community. So that's how we end the series.
I love the exploration because it teaches people, I guess, ways to get involved in various types of self-care that maybe they hadn't even thought of before. Yeah, what's the benefit of yoga and what's the benefit of journaling?
So yoga is the physical aspect of healing, and for some of us, it feels good to do that stretching, and it loosens us up before we get into a discussion. I know that's for some people that's something common. Exercise is a common way of exploring self-care. Um, and then, sorry, what was the second part of that?
The importance of journaling. Why is that
Oh,
important?
yeah. Journaling is a way, again, another common form of self-care to, explore your emotions, whether it's anger or sadness or happiness. And the idea that, when we're exploring our emotions and getting it out on paper, um, and then reflecting back on it, it can open us up to understanding what those emotions are and being able to sit in that emotion and really think about how it's affecting us. The same way that we have to be mindful of anger and sadness and making sure that we're able to explore those emotions in a healthy and safe way, we also talk about how we can enjoy some happiness and some joy and excitement and do those in a safe and healthy way also.
I think that's so important, particularly the physical movement and then the movement of emotion, because I think having those things flow through your body in a way that you can control and make it fluid and make it move instead of sit and fester and poison, that is awesome. So if someone wants to come to your workshop, what do they do? And is it only for local survivors or can anybody come?
I've had people come from, a little bit upstate in the Westchester area here in New York City. I mean, just logistically speaking, I think it's, easiest for New Yorkers to access the workshops, but I would never turn anyone away. Um, and if, anyone is interested in attending a workshop, they can, usually people connect with me through social media or on my website, dmrdel.com. There's a contact form and they can stay up to date with, I usually post the upcoming workshops on the website.
Okay. And how long does the workshop last?
They're all an hour and a half, all of them.
Okay. And can I come to more than one? And can I repeat the one that I came to before? How many can I go to?
You can come to all of them, or if you just want to do one in particular, you can do that also. I never, when I was, in the beginning of my healing journey, it was difficult to feel mandated to anything, and commitment was very hard. And so I leave that open space for participants to, join if you want. No pressure while you're in the workshop if you want to kind of sit back and do some of the activity, but not all of the activity. If you want to, you can share as much or as little as you want. So yeah, participants can come to one or they can come to all for sure.
And do you have them on a weekly basis or monthly basis? And what's the average number that you get in your workshops?
We keep the groups small, so usually 10 people at most. Healing journey is very young, and it's just me, and usually I'll have one other person, like maybe a yoga instructor or someone to, I often invite other survivor leaders to join me in leading some of the journaling. So yeah, they can come to as many as they want.
So, Maria, have you ever considered training people on how to facilitate the healing journey and maybe having chapters outside New York or across the country?
I mean, like I said, healing journey is very young. I do always invite other survivor leaders to, either facilitate or co-facilitate, or just sit in and be a supportive person, because I do believe in survivor leadership, for growth and healing, because healing is a journey. And so, I think that a lot of times survivor leaders can find that journey and see, what others are doing. And so I always encourage that. And so, I mean, if other people wanted to invite me to train them on how I do these workshops, I would absolutely be open to that, because, it's so important to just be able to explore what healing means for each and every one of us. And that can look very different in every part of the country, right? What we have here in New York is, very different than what, folks might have in other states. And for me, access to healing is such a priority, right? To wellness and being able to move forward in growth and development. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I just encourage you, my sister queen, to think about doing that kind of thing. Once you get your business up and running and stable, I think it would be awesome to have chapters across the country in various cities based on the model that you're developing. So, what about your involvement in New Yorkers for Equality? What is that about? That sounds pretty cool.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm a member of the New Yorkers for the Equality Model. There was legislation that was introduced that would fully decriminalize prostitution, and what that means is that pimping, brothel owning, and sex buying would all be legal here in New York. Currently, New York has right now, New York fully criminalizes prostitution. And so the New Yorkers for the Equality Model, we are a group of service providers, allies, survivor leaders here in New York, and we do not support full decriminalization. We, in fact, support partial decriminalization and advocate for the decriminalization of those who are in prostitution, and so the victims of commercial sexual exploitation. And so that's what we're pushing for right now, is the partial decrim under the called the Equality Model.
And so your group believes also that demand drives trafficking. And so
Absolutely.
what are your thoughts on that, and what does your coalition do to address that?
So that is in fact true, and we know that based on other countries who have attempted full decriminalization. And also in Sweden actually, the Equality Model is based off of what was called the Nordic Model in Sweden. And using their data, we have learned that, being able to address demand has essentially reduced prostitution in Sweden. So what we are pushing for is this legislation that would, again, decriminalize those who are victims in the commercial sex trade, while criminalizing pimping, sex buying, brothel owning, and things like that. If this legislation were to pass, New York would become a sex tourism state. And we definitely know the repercussions would include more underaged individuals in the sex trade, as well as just more violence. Yeah. So, I mean, I just could not imagine full decriminalization coming to New York. It would put so many vulnerable populations at high risk and actually increase demand.
And so, how close are you to passing partial decriminalization in New York?
Right now, the legislation is still in draft, but we do think that in the next month or so, we'll be able to put that legislation out. Anyone who's interested in more information on New Yorkers for the Equality Model can visit equalitymodelny.org.
Mm-hmm. And what will they find there when they get to the website?
On the website, we have a sign-on letter where they can sign on and join our efforts to bring partial decriminalization to New York, the Equality Model to New York. And there's lots more information on what exactly the Equality Model legislation is advocating for.
So people could go support New York, but also go and learn a lot more about this model in case they wanted to bring it to their state and start
Absolutely.
instituting legislation. So that's awesome. I love the fact that you are involved, boots on the ground, right directly with survivors and their healing, but also involved at the larger end in passing laws to protect people across the state. And so, what do you do at the Empower Center as coordinator there?
Sure. As a program coordinator, I am helping to develop what the equality model is advocating for. And so it's essentially giving survivors of the sex trade options, a way to leave the life, in the sense that we advocate for, we connect our clients to legal services that would help them vacate their criminal record. We help them there's access to medical services, gynecology, psychiatry. We have therapy here. We have a peer care navigator who can help our clients navigate and access different services throughout the city. Our peer care navigator will often go to court dates with our clients, but also will accompany our clients to a food pantry. And so it's a comprehensive health center and essentially a one-stop shop for survivors to access a variety of services that would help them rebuild, exit the life, rebuild, and then, also explore their healing.
And so this is all under one roof?
All under one roof, yes.
That is awesome. And how long's that been open?
We just opened in January. It is an extension of the Empower Clinic, which Dr. Veronica Addis has, she started that, I believe, in 2013. So it's an extension of her clinic, and then we opened up officially in January of this year.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Shout out to Dr. Veronica.
Yes, we're very
So,
excited.
for sure. So, where do you get your funding to operate the Empower Center?
We are in partnership with the City Council, Health and Hospitals, and Sanctuary for Families.
Wow. And what's Sanctuary for Families?
Sanctuary for Families is one of the largest service providers supporting survivors of domestic violence, sex trafficking, and other forms of gender-based violence.
Awesome. Now, you're in New York. Are you in New York City?
Yes, New York City, the
And
5 boroughs.
Okay. And do you cut across the 5 boroughs? Where's your office, the center actually located?
So we're in the borough of Manhattan, but our services are available to anyone in any of the 5 boroughs.
That is so awesome. And so, about what percentage of trafficking victims would you guess that you see in the center as opposed to victims of domestic violence or, sexual assault and those types of things?
I actually don't have those statistics, but since the center is opened, we're getting anywhere from 10 to 15, referrals every week.
Of all kinds of victims of all sorts of crime, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, primarily survivors of the sex trade. However, there's often a lot of overlap in survivors of the sex trade, right? So
Mhm.
experiencing domestic violence and just a lot of a lot of trauma. We see a lot of trauma um, in our clients.
And what do you do to take care of yourself? Having been a survivor, I can imagine, and then working every day in different aspects. What do you do to take care of yourself?
Absolutely. And so I definitely do, follow my own advice and explore different ways to explore what healing means. And for me, I do believe that it's been a journey, and it's often for me, it feels like a forever journey. As triggers come up, I do different things. I use essential oils to, for me, scent can sometimes be a trigger. And so I use a lot of I carry around a lot of different essential oils to kind of help ground me. I use a lot of fidget items. And I've just been so privileged to be able to connect with a very strong community. I've built such a strong community around me that I feel supported. And so if at any time I feel like I need to take a step back, I definitely give myself the space to do that. It's not easy to do this work and to see the trauma over and over again. So I'm always very mindful of how the work affects me. And I think that that's probably the most important thing, is to understand how it affects me so that I'm able to identify those triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm always, in and out of therapy. I think that therapy is something that's very important, right? To be able to kind of talk
Mm-hmm.
things out, to because sometimes, I may not be able to identify what's triggered me in a week, and being able to talk it out with someone and say, I've just been having this feeling. I'm feeling kind of down, like, there's so much going on, and I feel, like I'm close to defeat. And having someone say, doing this work is hard, and reflecting it back to me is really helpful. And then, I often start my self-care routine very early in the morning, the minute I wake up.
Mm-hmm.
5:30 in the morning, I give myself space to say, okay, what am I going to try and get done today? And then by the end of the day, giving myself permission to say I didn't get it all done, right? But
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow's another day.
And I also came to know that you are an avid crocheter and knitter. So, when do you crochet and knit? Is it when you're stressed out, or when you have some downtime, or when?
Absolutely. I do believe I'm a creative spirit, and I do use creativity um, as part of my self care. And I will crochet like on the train on my way to work sometimes. But then sometimes, if I'm just sitting at home, I'll sit in my little wicker chair and you know, um, do a scarf or something like that. And I think one of my goals for self care was to try and attempt a sweater or something a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. I I admire people that can crochet and knit, particularly knitting, because my personality, I would just ball it all up and throw it out the window because it would frustrate me the level of detail.
I do hear that. I do hear that. And I think that, it is important to point out that, what works for one person may not work for other people. And that's why it's important to explore what your healing journey is, right? I've,
Mhm.
sat with people who are trying to learn how to do, knitting or crocheting. And they're like, oh my God, this is like stressing me out way more than it's like de-stressing me. This is not for me, right?
Mhm.
But being able to explore that and say like, okay, this doesn't work for me. Let me try something else.
So you've really gone full circle, um, in your life in terms of being victimized and then becoming a healer of other people as well as yourself. What does the future hold for Marie?
Wow. Yeah, I do believe that it's it's it is full circle, and it feels amazing. And for me, the future is just bringing the equality model to New York and helping others explore healing. Um, that it really does give me so much uh, joy, and I feel very honored and privileged to be able to be in a position where I can give back. And so that for me is full circle.
Yeah, and what advice would you give to someone who is trying to get involved in anti-trafficking work, or maybe they are involved in anti-trafficking work? What's some of the best advice that you think you can give these folks who are trying to do something and do it well and do it effectively?
Sure. Well, for survivors, I would say, consider how the work will impact you and your healing journey. And just know that, you can do the work without putting yourself out there in the news. You can do the work without, you know, um, talking to news outlets. There are so many ways to get involved and be active in the movement. Um,
Hmm.
but it is very important to consider how the work will impact your healing. And just for anyone, all of our allies and everyone else, we have a lot of work to do, right?
Hmm.
In every state.
How do people get in contact with you again if they want to know more about the equality model or maybe your healing journey workshops or even the way you guys put together the Empower Center?
Yeah. So the Empower Center, I don't know our web address, but if anyone did want to get in contact with us, um, our phone number is 212-238-4809. My email address is mdeleon at sffny. That's MDELEON at sffny.org. Um,
And is that Marie?
Again,
Because the F sound like the S's. So give us that back part again.
sure. MDELEON at SFFNY. That's Sam Frank Frank NY.org. Um,
Thank you.
and the New Yorkers for the Equality Model, our website is equalitymodelny.org. Um, yeah. And then again, for Healing Journey, um, you can follow me at your underscore healing underscore journey on Instagram. And my website is dmrdel.com.
Well, Marie, you are simply awesome. Awesome. And
Thank you so much.
I wish you the best and I wish you a great and wonderful future and much success in all the work that you're doing for survivors directly and that you're doing to pass laws to protect victims. So, thank you so much for your time today. And I hope we'll have you back on very soon, talking more about what's happened with New York and the law.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing your audience with me.
Thank you, Marie. When I hear about all the exciting things that people are doing across the country, I sort of envision myself what are the things that I could bring to my community. When she talked about the healing journey, I love that idea of yoga and processing and those types of things, and the Empower Center and working politically on passing laws in New York. So those things get me excited. And if they get you excited too, start thinking about ways that you can get even further involved in the anti trafficking issue in your community. And I want you to also hear that she very much respects the idea of healing yourself. She takes time, and she explained the things that she does to help her de-stress and relax and recenter. And she also honors that other people are on their journey toward healing. So please always be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself. Speak good to yourself. 85% of our self-talk is often negative. Count your blessings. Treat yourself well. Respect yourself. Value yourself. Be there for yourself. Talk to yourself. Don't listen to these crazy people that say don't talk to yourself. Of course, talk to yourself. Some people say that's probably the most intelligent conversation you'll have all day. And also answer yourself, because what the hell would you talk to yourself for and not give a great answer? So talk to yourself, answer yourself, be happy with yourself. Think good thoughts. Try to better yourself. Please be patient with yourself. Push yourself when you can. And above all else, always be yourself. If you like this episode of Emancipation Nation, please subscribe and I'll send you the weekly podcast. Until then, the fight continues.